Good afternoon, my name is Clare Jacklin. I'm Chief Exec of the National Rheumatoid Arthritis Society. So before I begin, I'd like to remind you that we will have an opportunity for you to ask questions to our panel, which I'll introduce in a moment. And so if you want to take notes during the presentations so you remember that question, because if you're anything like me, I always tend to forget. Also, we have a Twitter handle, which you can see at the bottom here, hashtag Time2Work. So if you don't want to put your hand up to ask a question, you can actually pose a question on Twitter through using that hashtag Time2Work, and my colleague Matt will be monitoring those and will put them to the panel in due course. At the back of the room, we have some people from AbilityNet, who are a UK charity that helps people within the workplace looking at technological responses to issues that you might have, and they've got some really interesting things to show you. So as an employer or an employee, do go and have a look, and of course we have all our own information at the back there as well. So NRAS is the only UK patient organisation focusing specifically on rheumatoid arthritis and juvenile idiopathic arthritis. We're ideally positioned to identify the needs and hopefully address many of the needs of those living with these two conditions in all aspects of life. But today's event is part of a wider European campaign. The Don't Delay, Connect Today is a EULAR campaign. EULAR is the European League Against Rheumatism. That engages with all three EULAR pillars, so patient organisations, health professionals and the scientific communities. And this year's theme is Time to Work. And it just corresponded nicely with the work that we've been doing with the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, and the REC, which is the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. Because this was some work that we undertook after doing our UK-wide survey, which you have a copy of, called Work Matters, about the impact of rheumatoid arthritis and adult juvenile arthritis on working lives. And so we thought this would be an ideal format and platform to share that information today. So we're going to be showing you two little clips from both of those films in a few moments that we're launching today. The Work Matters survey was a collaboration with the University of Manchester, and we were successful in gathering data from 1,222 people, 63% of which are employed in paid employment, and about 7% are self-employed. So that's good news in that it's an increase from a notable increase from when we first looked at the impact of RA on work back in 2007. But it's still not good enough, we feel. So, because we still have far too many people falling out of the workplace because of lack of understanding and perhaps lack of support within that workplace. So today's launch of the films will hopefully answer some of those issues and help line managers and HR personnel be able to support their employees. The government has the ambitious aim to halve the disability employment gap by 2020. That's next year. So with this goal in mind, the Work Matters report made some significant recommendations to incorporate training of workforce, particularly line managers, in how to support employees with long-term conditions and disabilities, and ensure that this is included in all new employees' inductions. So the launch of these two new video resources to complement our existing booklets on the topic of work, which again we have at the back of the room, one for employers and one for employees, is hopefully going to address some of that recommendation. So let's take a quick sneak preview of the highlights from both of the interviews that Elsa, our founder of NRAS, did with Rain Newton-Smith from the CBI and Neil Carberry, who at the time was with the REC.
What we've really noticed is businesses are very keen to have more of these conversations. I think the priority that businesses are putting on health and wellness of their employees has become even more important. We recently did a survey of over 350 businesses, and what we found in that was over 2/3 thought that health and well-being had become more important to their organization. And over 80% said that this was important to their overall business as well. So I think people are having the conversation, but I think often employers aren't sure, particularly if they're smaller, about what they need to do to make it easier for people with long-term health conditions.
Access to Work, for instance, is a fantastic scheme. I've used it myself in the past for people in businesses that I've been running. There's a real challenge in terms of helping employers understand what the potential is. I think larger firms referencing it in staff handbooks is a great idea. More importantly, I think just making sure in line management training you remind people that there are things you can do. So I think there's lots and lots that we can pick up in terms of how line managers and companies themselves get information that will help spread the word about how we can support inclusion in the labour market.
The good news is there are lots of technologies to make it easier for people to work from home, to work part-time. And I think that's the way in which we're going to make it easier and adapt to a world in which we do have an aging population and we have more people who have long-term health conditions. But I think we'll also find it more rewarding for all of us as people. We want to stay engaged with the world of work. We want to feel we're contributing, that we're productive, that we're contributing to wider society, and that we have a sort of social fabric, and work is often at the centerpiece of that for a lot of people.
Most good employers work to the basis that if someone needs to be at a hospital or at a doctor's appointment for a period of time during the working day, that is perfectly legitimate because they have to look after their health first. You don't have a productive employee if you're not allowing employees to look after their health. I think it's important that we don't confuse annual leave with things people have to do to look after themselves, and I'd encourage all employers to be thinking flexibly about these things. We need to remember that most businesses are very small, and coming into contact, for instance, with someone with a long-term condition is relatively rare. So they do need that information because, for the most part, they want to do the right thing, they just don't know what the right thing is.
I have a very bubbly 9-year-old who has been diagnosed with JIA since the age of 3. And I think first of all, I'm very lucky that my employer has always made it very easy for me to take time for medical appointments, either for me or for my daughter. So it's been really easy to support her, and that's obviously taken a lot of the stress of managing her condition away. And I'm very lucky my team have always been really helpful. If she's ever had an emergency appointment, we've all pulled together to make it easy for me to be there. And I think that's part of working at a place where everyone values the work that we do, and it makes me very loyal to the organisation that I work for. And I think that's so important. Even as a working parent, I have 4 young children. I need to be able to work from home. I need the flexibility with my hours, and I think that's really what the modern world of work is about.
So that just gives you a little flavour of what's included in the 2 standalone videos that are now available on our website, so nras.org.uk/time2work. And I would, for any of the employers in the room, I would really encourage you to go and have a look at that And if you'd like us to get involved with helping to train some of your line managers, I'm sure we can offer some more support. So first, I'd like to introduce our panel that we have today. We have Dr. Karen Walker-Bone, Louise Parker from the RCN, Kyla and Kate at the end there, and Nick Davidson from the John Lewis Partnership. And I'll introduce those all as they come to speak.